Okay, so welcome to the Node.js Node API team meeting for June 30th, 2023. We'll follow our standard approach of going through what we've tagged for milestone 11. But I guess before we do that, does anybody have any news they'd like to share? Okay, no news for this week. We will dive into the issues then. Let me share my screen with that. Where are we? Okay, that's why. I think everybody should be able to see it here. Oops. Sorry, I'm just trying to open up the panelists so that I might see if somebody else joins. Okay. So the first one is drive towards full coverage. I don't think we have an update on this one unless anybody else has seen anything. I think, Kevin, maybe you were reviewing. Was there still one from Jack?
I have, there was one from Jack and he updated it and it was merged. And I don't think there are any additional PRs for coverage specifically. There's some changes that Gabe has made, that 1325.
Yep.
That one. And then Jack is working on programmatically collecting coverage. But those are not like adding coverage to tests. No.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm just.
And I think Jack said that everything should be covered now after those last merges.
Right. So maybe the last thing is getting the code coverage in there, because that would be
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's no more issues open that have the test label, and that's how we were tracking all of our things that needed to be added. So I think we should have full coverage.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, we should figure out, I guess, still adding the coverage is good, but getting to the point where we've got things covered is a great milestone. Just looking at the CI runs for Gabe's change to how we run the thing, and they seem to have passed once I got them to actually run. It took me a few attempts to run them the right way, but that's good. So yeah, I think it's down to, I wanted to take another look, but they seem to pass all the tests. So if anybody has a chance, that would be good. C language bindings to Node. We know that Nick is working away on that. And I don't think there's any update this week. I haven't done anything on debug testing. We already talked about what's new. Improving the OSSF scorecard. So thanks, Kevin, to your help, we resolved and landed that. I did go through and land a whole bunch of, like, they will regularly now open pull requests to update versions and stuff like that.
Right, Dependabot.
Yeah, so now I really need to go back and take a look at what the scorecard's telling us, if there's any gaps or anything like that. But
right, for example, one of them is like branch protection on the main branch and things like that. So do we want to keep this issue open then for, in general, improving the scorecard?
I think that's a good idea. So, like, if you've mentioned, branch protection, we can probably use this to sort of say, here's what tells us we should do. Do we think we should do that?
Okay, yeah, because I looked at the list of things that they suggested when I was working on that PR. So I can take a look at the other things and maybe put some recommendations in here, and we can discuss next meeting what we want to do.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Thanks a lot. Because then I think it's just sort of that would be perfect. It's sort of like, hey, here's the recommendation, here's what you think we should do, and then we can just agree and do things. So
all right.
Okay, well, thanks. Okay. I think that just takes us to, then we can go to stale issues. This one, I know, Vladimir, you're working away on anything you want to mention or discuss on that one this week?
Yeah, basically, I just want to kind of discuss a bit about what to do in case if people try to call these finalizers. I mean, if they try to do any kind of GC related stuff in their finalizers in this new code, should we crash node.js or produce some kind of error? Like, I just want to kind of understand what will be a more appropriate way to report this bad behavior inside of finalizers.
What do we have any options beside a crash, like an assert that crashes kind of thing, or?
We can do nothing.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that's another option.
Could we add a new status for like whenever you call into JavaScript? Like, don't we have one that said something like cannot execute JS or something? Like, we've been discussing that in the past. I don't know if it exists or if this would be a good use case for it.
It is, but as I'm kind of working with tests for it, like I'm seeing some very weird behavior. Like, for example, in many of our unit tests, we have some kind of macro, and what this macro typically does, like saying, oh, okay, let me check if latest status was not okay. If the status was not okay, let me throw it as a JavaScript error. But the problem is, like in this state, we couldn't even throw JavaScript error. So in the end, it's right now no op. Like I mean, it pretty much failing kind of throw an error returns with status. And it actually does nothing in the end. So we either should, if we crash, we either should crash or we do nothing. I don't know.
Could you trigger into a set immediate to throw just a random exception in JavaScript? Like, I don't know, like, how do we handle thread safe functions when there's like an error in the call JS? Remember that it used to crash and Changzong fixed that, so now it doesn't crash. Like, could we use some sort of that same behavior?
I think this isn't in the JavaScript part though, right, Vladimir? I think this is in the C code.
Right. So idea that we kind of implementing this pure finalizer. So we're saying that in the new world, like people have effectively choice of two actions. They either in these pure finalizers, they don't ever touch JavaScript, or not only just JavaScript, they can't touch GC because, for example, we have this function create object. This create object is perfectly fine, then we can't run JavaScript, but it touches GC, and if we do nothing, it crashes there. There's some kind of V8 error. So technically, I need to add all these additional checks to all these different functions.
But I think generating like creating an object is effectively running JavaScript.
Yeah, but in our code today, we're not checking it. Like we allow in pretty much in some contexts where we're not allowed to run JavaScript, we today allowed to say create object, create array. We probably need to fix it, I guess.
Yeah, like I consider that like, because those are creating new JavaScript objects, right? So that's like writing JavaScript. And so, but back to your original question, I think I was just clarifying that it's not in our JavaScript code, it's in the native code. Like we've now got the pure finalizer, and you should either run something to say, well, run in something where I can run JavaScript, or don't do any JavaScript. And what happened? I think it's like, well, what if they do, right?
Right. Because I want to have a test which covers this stuff, and as I'm writing this test, like I've seen some weird behavior. So I would propose to kind of have this fatal stuff. I would propose to crash at this point.
I think I'd lean that way too, because otherwise, like, it's going to be really hard to figure out that you haven't done the right thing. And yeah,
I agree. Like, if it's either crash or do nothing, if we do nothing, then you don't know that something wrong is happening.
Yeah, because I can't produce JavaScript except I can't produce anything which can be then intercepted in JavaScript, right, at this point. So one of the things I understand previously was Changjon done, like he allowed to have people handle with fatal exceptions in normal JavaScript handle, but we can't call JavaScript at this point. We're in a very, very bad state. I mean, GC in a state like don't touch me at all.
Yeah, so I think sounds like agreement that like the assert makes sense.
Okay. So, and what will be a recommended way to crash? Like, sorry, I've seen like there are different ways we're doing it through the system, but in Node API we have something like an API fatal error, which in the end ends up in calling abort, I guess.
That seems reasonable to me.
Then I guess like would it be kind of a good idea to promote an API fatal error to JS native API?
Is there some corresponding, I guess you're saying because.
Yeah, it's not related to this PR.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let me just pretty much execute whatever an API fatal error does. I guess the next question will be, as we're reporting this issue, do we want to provide as much as information as possible, like, for example, native call stack and stuff? What type of information do you want to keep?
Yeah, I don't know what native the fatal error already provides, right? But certainly, if there's an easy thing to already give a call stack,
what if it looks similar to when you try to call JavaScript outside of the main thread? You know, that gives a certain type of stack error. Maybe that comes from V8, I guess, but maybe we can look at how that gets output, because that also comes with a stack trace of some sort.
Okay, Colin. Okay. So I think in this case, the node would actually have a crash and will provide some additional information.
I think that would be good. Yeah.
I guess one of my question about this call stack, do we have any kind of policy in place about some so-called PII, personal identifiable information? I don't know, it's a big deal in our
No, I think every time I saw a V8 call stack crash, it was always just like public code of the C++ that was being displayed. It was never anything that I saw that was concerning that shouldn't be visible.
Okay. Technically, I would expect this issue would be visible mostly during development time, like if people do proper testing.
Yeah, if they, you know, we certainly don't want people running into it during production. So, and hopefully the testing exposes it. Certainly, like if there's anybody who on their update to Node API 9 doesn't read the part about having, like, they're basically pure by default, hopefully we'll run into it immediately, right?
Right.
It might even make sense if we can to try and output a message that actually says, once you opt into the Node API 9, these finalizers are pure by default. If you need to run JavaScript, here's the method you should be calling, right? Like some link, because that's probably a thing as people upgrade, it may be a common thing.
Right. Yeah, you mean like, can we, maybe as a part of error message, is what we actually can recommend to say. Like,
right, yeah, like print out, before we crash, print out something that says like, hey, looks like you're trying to run JavaScript in finalizers as of Node API 9. This isn't, this is not allowed by default. Here's blah, 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 right? I can point them to the documentation, which is pretty, it's going to be easy for them to do it, but they need to do it, right? So the documentation explains how to do that.
Okay. And this documentation should be part of our Node API doc, so you see it to be a separate file.
So we've added a new method in the node, like just the node docs, right? Like there's a new method now to call your JavaScript. Is that right? I'm just trying to remember.
Yes. It's going to be a new method called the Node API post finalizer.
Right. So I think it should be a link to the documentation for that basically says, you know, you now need to call, if you need to run JavaScript, you now need to call the JavaScript through this method. You know, and I think the doc to that should have that, just pointing to that then, and that should have all the doc which says, what do you need to do? And, you know, whatever.
Okay, sounds good. And we have, we pretty much, do we have like anchors for all our kind of functions? As a part of the documentation, do we generate this hash tag, like so technically we can jump directly to the function, right?
Yeah, well here, like no API, no API docs. So I think the answer is yes, but like I'm generating them, finding the node API ones, and just can give you an example. There we go. Right. So here's like the link. Okay, can I copy that? Copy link address. Then where's the chat now? Right, there we go. So I just pasted in the chat. That's an example of a link to one of them, the existing ones.
Okay, so we do have this hash anchors. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
HTML anchors.
Yeah, and that one's like for latest 20, but I think if I take out the -v20 and just use latest, that gives me the very latest one. So that's the way we'd want to link.
The same docs, latest, and
yeah,
okay.
Here I just here's the updated link. I just changed it and that still works.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much. Yeah, I would hopefully will be. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So on the next one on the stale, not warmer 19. So this is change default for flags to control. Right, and add a listener. So I think Shenzong was looking at that one, so I don't know that we have anything to discuss. This next one, I think Gabriel was looking at, but I don't know that there's any update this week to discuss. And then this one, which I think Vladimir's on your queue, but you got lots of stuff to do on this other one. So I think that takes us to the end of things to discuss for this week. Let us on the stale list, so then we can dive into issues in the repos themselves. So let's look at. Okay, so pull requests. This one's quite new, so I don't know if there's anything to discuss there. This one I thought would be good for us to talk a little bit. Kevin, I see you shaking your head.
Yes. Because I played around with this branch a little bit, and when you're using a version that is not listed here, you just get a warning. So I don't think it would be too problematic to add.
Okay.
You can configure NPM to error when you're using an unsupported one, but on the flip side, it's also like, you know, you can still use this version of Node add-on API in Node 14 if you wanted to, because this version, like, we still have a bunch of those, like the preprocessor definitions to check your NAPI version and everything like that. So I don't know if we want to have that warning. The thing that when we say we drop support for an older version, that just mainly means we're removing it from our testing suite.
It does
Right.
mean though that things like, if we choose to use a compiler thing it's not going to work with 14 anymore, it might not work anymore, right?
Right, that is true. And that was one of the reasons why I could not use string view in one of the PRs. Right.
So it
Because
does.
yeah.
So I'm kind of like, if it's just a warning, and like if you said, you can compile it to error, well, you've chosen to do that, right? Like you want to know. So unless we think there's a downside, it seems reasonable to me to say, like, we've specifically bumped the version to say, no, we only support these. And I guess the engines is another way to communicate that versus what's in the.
Quick question.
Yeah.
We talk about like a Node API to become like usable not only by node.js, but say by Dino JS runtime and say runtime. And I guess they could use C++ for Node API as well. Like I wonder if this might affect other runtimes or not. Like
I think in that case, like if there was an engines Dino, we'd be happy enough to add in that information as well, right?
Right.
I think maybe it would depend on because not all of the JavaScript engine, the other engines support NPM package, do they? I think they're only recently adding that now. And I don't know if they even parse the engine's property. But I get like somebody, I would definitely like if somebody made a PR and they're like, we wanted to add this, I guess it would make sense.
I guess I don't really, sorry, go ahead, Vladimir.
I just want to make sure that we don't artificially restrict ourselves only to node.js by implementing this.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
so I see if you're saying, what about the others, and saying, yeah, okay.
I just don't know how this engines work by typically by NPM. Does it mean we only support Node from now on?
I don't think so. I think those numbers match. Like if you're using that engine,
okay,
then it can use it to do a check, right? Like I don't, because for example, the other runtimes would have this problem for anybody who's got an engines field, right? If they're running and they then said, well, we're going to check against this, I don't know, it seems like a bigger problem. So I don't think we're introducing the problem. So yeah.
Okay.
So if we find out we're wrong, I'm happy that we would back that out or something, but it seems like it seems like they must have figured out something. And my guess is that, yeah, the engines are like, because I think what other thing, does anybody seen other things under engines?
You can put an option for which version of NPM as well.
Right. So that's what I was thinking. Like this is specifically saying, here's the range for Node. And if you can put in like NPM as a range, then because there's something for Node, that doesn't imply anything against Dino or Bon or any of the others.
So it sounds like we want this is approved then? We should approve this.
I think so. Like I wanted to have us chat a little bit because I wasn't sure, but I can't, and through our discussion, I can't see any reason why not, right?
I agree.
Okay. So yeah, given that, I'll throw on my +1.
I'll throw on mine as well.
Okay, sounds good. Let's see, what other PRs do we have? This one I think we already talked about. I think we talked about all those. We can look at any other new issues. This one I also thought was probably good for us to talk about. So, right. And I think, Kevin, you already answered that. So that's good.
Yeah, there's no operator overloading. And then I mentioned this symbol to primitives that
Okay.
you can add a property to or of.
Okay, good. Yeah, I my thought was no, but I wasn't confident enough to say without some other people. So good, you answered there. Okay.
Yeah, so this should get closed when we merge.
Oh yeah, I think we already discussed. Okay, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's good. See, since there's no answer, maybe it's.
This sounds like some sort of referencing
Yeah.
correctly. But I'd have to take a better look in order to give advice.
Okay. Do you want to do that? Or I could comment in there, like, have you looked at references? That would be the.
You can start with that. And then when I have more time, I can go a little more in depth then. I think that would be good.
Okay. So I'm gonna say. Okay, I will comment there. So at least we've got a quick answer. This one, I know there's been some discussion back and forth. I don't know if there's anything for us to discuss. So this one I know you
deal with finalizers again.
So is this one? So this is one that we have on our. Right. Okay. So it's basically all just related to the stuff we're working on. So any others in Node add-on API that we should discuss this week?
I have nothing.
Flip over to the Node repo. No, so I see this is a new one. Chengzong opened pretty early, so I don't know if there's anything to discuss. The version matrix we still have in the list update. Probably need to figure out what to do there, but I don't docs. I don't think there's anything really new there unless there's ones that people have for us to discuss.
Yes. There was from the Node API C# presentation, it was mentioned that the libnode embedding PR thing, is there anything that we need to do to move this forward?
I think that was one where oh well, yeah, I guess Vladimir, you and Jason, right? We're going to try and move that one forward, right?
So basically, I guess question would be, we saw that original author said that he's right now like has some personal issues. He might not able to move it forward. So I guess I guess question to the team is it what we can do? Can we just somehow continue just contributing to this PR or like fork this PR? What will be, because we definitely want this libnode to happen with C-based API. The question like how to make make it moving forward. So what would be the
Can
best
you-
approach? Such
I guess you can't necessarily push changes to the PR, right?
If he allowed contributions or edits from contributors, some PRs allow that, but I don't know.
Yeah, there's like maintainers allowed to contribute.
So that
Yeah.
would be like, I would, my take would be like, yeah, he's made the comment, like, or I can comment in there like, hey, would you mind if Vladimir takes over, you know, since it sounds like you're not necessarily gonna have cycles, do you mind if Vladimir takes over? If that's okay, would the best way for him to continue to push to this PR or create a new PR? What do you think? Like, I think asking in the PR that question.
Right.
And, you know, if there's no answer in a week or two, then I think we can say, well, like, okay, somebody's not, they're not available to answer. So we shouldn't let that block us. And in that case, I would say like, possibly you know, like, here's a new PR. I don't know. If you're happy to push to this PR, I think that would be the best way, is to just keep going there.
I agree.
And, you know, yeah, that would be my take, just so that it sort of acknowledges all the work he's done so far. And
If you scroll a bit up, like it's usually kind of on the bottom right, there is a note which, no, if you scroll up a bit.
Up.
Okay, so wait. But maintainers are allowed to edit this pull request. So think
Yeah.
pretty much at this point means that sounds like his branch is open to this stuff. But technically, the way it usually works, like I used to contribute somebody else PRs before. You pretty much submitting changes to this person kind of branch.
right, you can PR to their branch, right? And then I think in this case, though, it might, you know, they're kind of saying I don't have time. So I think
Yeah,
directly
the
to their branch.
way that I did it with the open security thing was I just checked out I've cloned their fork, and you're able to push directly to this branch on their fork. You don't have to do a PR because of the fact that we're allowed to edit the pull request. If we weren't, then we would have to create a PR. So you should just be able to check out this fork and push directly, if that is the route that, you know, he says we can go with, or he doesn't. You know, I don't think you have to do a PR to it though.
Yeah, you typically don't do. It's kind of very weird. Like you literally, like you said, you push into somebody else branch inside of their repo, and it actually affects this PR. Yeah, I think like you said, to kind of to attribute this PR to original authors would be the best approach to finish stuff, because usually if this PR get landed, his name will be right there.
Yeah, and even if we created a new one, we'd want to make sure that we include, there's like some GitHub metadata you can include that says like co-whatevers, co-authors. So do you want me to comment here that says like, you know, or do you want to comment asking the question in terms of like, hey, is it okay if I take it over?
I can ask question. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is best to say like, and do you prefer that I push to this, you know, is it okay if I take this over? And if so, do you prefer if I just push to your branch, or would you prefer that I create a new PR that acknowledges you, right? Because that way, like you said, it's kind of funny that you're pushing to somebody else's branch. So they might say, no, create your own, but equally they might say, yeah, just keep pushing here. So.
Yeah, previously I used to do it in some other repos. I usually ask for permission first. Like even you could do it like I mean from the GitHub permission point of view, but it's always better to ask.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Also, do we know, other than fixing the conflicts, do we know what's needed for moving it forward? I think there was a list in the second comment here. Like, is there anything technically that we need to change, or was it just this?
There is definitely moving the APIs so they're not part of Node API itself. Like, I think the proposal was to say, like, we've got the C API, but it's not part of Node API. So we're not committing to the API stability of them yet, but they'll still look like Node API things. And like, hopefully if we get enough experience, that'll be enough to make everybody comfortable that we can move them in at some point. But for now, they're a C API. They happen to use Node API for like the types and all that kind of stuff, but they're not under the Node API guarantee. So that's kind of the main change I think we needed.
I think that was completed already. He added a new file called Node API embedding. And in that file is where those functions for an API create platform version and platform, those are. So that was already addressed.
Okay.
There is a separate header, but implementation is still inside of our, I believe, it's just native API.
I see.
Even implementation wise, it will be better if we move it out, I guess.
Yeah, that makes
sense. Especially just
okay.
native API V8, it's something what we said people can use outside of node.js completely. So I personally use it inside of standalone V8 engine. So I would like not to have it because it's node.js specific code. If we want to merge with existing files, I would rather see it as a part of node API.cc rather than just native API.
I think it's better to try and just like have it completely separate so it's clear like this is not part of the Node API.
Yeah, maybe just name it node API embedding.cc. It's a new file for the implementation.
Yeah, definitely. We need to see. I don't remember what exactly this new header file name he created.
Okay.
But you can just simply have exactly matching the same name for CC file. And
the thing that would be interesting to think about is like, so we do that. That's now used by some people. Will there be an easy way to also expose it in Node API at some point?
But it's just separate header file. Like people, I would say. There are different scenarios, right? Because technically, one scenario is then we're creating a module, new native module. So technically, you don't need this API as a part of your module. But this is more like hosting API, like something. Then you would like to host libnode inside of your application. So technically, I would expect it to be two different scenarios.
Right. Okay. So it should.
Yeah.
Okay. We might just promote that file to be like a Node API, one of the Node API places. Yeah. Okay.
I would say the hosting API is a superset of Node API, but not vice versa. So I think embedding one should include Node API, but not Node API including embedding.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
I guess I want to play devil's advocate here about the putting it in different files and whatnot. Why could it just be an experimental API? And then people play with it and then we get their feedback and we just keep it as experimental until it's ready that we collect the feedback. And
I think it, really my attempt in that suggestion was to like totally take that ABI part out of the equation now, right? Like let's not even worry about that, right? Like
that's right.
Whereas if it's experimental, it's still like, potentially people,
right.
It's a stronger expectation that it might be at some point, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense to me.
And we have a lot of scenarios for this C-based API. Like we're just showing that we can use it inside of C# and .NET applications. We can't use current embedding APIs because it's C++ based, but C-based API just gives us immediately.
Yeah, and I think Michael had some experimentation.
Yeah, I had one too, where basically it was easy to integrate with C, but if C++ would have been a whole, not, I'm like, oh, this project I'm integrating in doesn't build any C++, so I don't have a, it'd be adding a lot more dependencies and all sorts of stuff to a project that like, would they ever even want to take that, right? So.
Yeah, so there's definitely within this team a need for it. So
yeah.
You can imagine, the other people. So it makes sense to try to move this forward then. Okay.
And the whole story about being able to have this libnode as a part of your application. So imagine if somebody wants to have Electron style application using React Native, for example. It's something I'm working on. We were kind of discussing what if we embed the whole libnode inside of and make it working with React Native UI. So technically have some kind of competition to Electron stuff, like something we're not actively working on, but kind of discussing it would be cool to have.
Yeah, I know. I definitely for quite a long time have wished we had like the, a shared library easily linkable. So.
And yeah, I probably need to also kind of send this issue about publishing this libnode, because as we discussed, we do not have right now capacity to do it inside of a node.js project, but I can do it in our pipeline if you like.
Yeah, I think that's the most realistic in the medium to short term, like, is the people who need it somehow publish it, right? And
right. Okay.
Yeah, that's the only issue that I kind of wanted to bring up then. So I have nothing else to discuss.
Yeah, it's a good issue. I also want to discuss it, but I just didn't want to overcommit me to more work. Okay.
Any other issues people or topics people would like to discuss?
Can we go back a bit to this? I see this export faster way create objects with properties for Node API.
Sorry, which number was that?
It's a probably number. I mean, it's fifth row, I guess, from the top.
This one?
No, below 2 lines below. Not next one.
This one,
I
right?
see.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, something would have been discussed a long time ago, and how we can create this object. So I think like submitting this kind of new code for. Okay, I didn't see it. It was some proposals for the new APIs. I think like I definitely can create some APIs for creating strings. It should be nice.
Yeah, Gabe made a change. There's probably a PR here for a certain fast path when you're creating, yeah, this 48400. Yeah, this one. Where he, depending like if certain like read only or read write enumerable configurable properties take a different route in the code, and apparently that's supposed to be faster, but I'm not sure if there's other optimizations that you could do, like you mentioned something about strings, but I don't know.
Yeah, we definitely want to add this so-called optimized strings or name strings, which pretty much have this internalized strings. I think the biggest one is about creating this JavaScript object. And initially, I thought like we can do it as a part of node.js code, but kind of look into this thing, it sounds like we must have, because it's using some internal V8 API, we must have implementation inside of V8. Don't know, like, do you guys have experience how we usually do such things? Like,
I think it's all coming to like, can you come up with methods that provide like more information, right? Like, so you want to, you're saying create an object, and an object.
Yeah, if you scroll up, it's the first method in this proposal, like,
or here, yeah.
Okay. So like create object from entries. So pretty much it's kind of simulate some behavior what we have in JavaScript. I think it's called create object from entries. It's kind of limited scenario, if you like. It's not as generic as defining class. It's more like what Gabriel did, defining this data property. So think we creating just a bunch of data properties, and we trying to make it as fast as possible.
Yeah, so as long as that's something which is generic, that any engine could implement or not, and we can make a good enough case that, like, it's then it just comes down to like, hey, we want to keep our surface sort of small versus large. So like the backing of like, yeah, why is this one in particular important? And it's going to speed up X, Y, and Z, that kind of stuff. Having a good explanation of that.
And but we need technically change the V8 code for that to happen.
Well, okay, so in that case, what usually happens is somebody's got to make a PR to V8. And if V8 accepts it, then you've got what you need to do the next step, right?
Okay.
So I know like Chenzong has made a few PRs to V8, and you might point to like, here's the node issues to give it some support to say like, hey, it's, if I'm going to try and optimize node based on this and that kind of thing.
Do you know what changes would be needed to V8?
I think I have this change in one of my branches, personal branches. So idea was very simple. So one of the developers on this thread, he noticed that then we're trying to parse JSON object model. It's the fastest way to create objects inside of V8. And I looked inside of this JSON parsing, and thankfully they have some kind of highly optimized code, how they're using all these different hidden classes and stuff. So thankfully, idea that let's take this machinery out of this kind of JSON parsing and allow pretty much the same code to be callable from Node API and from V8 API, if you like. But I'm not a core V8 developer. I don't know, like, while kind of maybe some small examples working faster, is it kind of what's biggest impact on overall V8 ecosystem and stuff like?
Certainly, Chenzong has done a few V8 PRs, so like he might have some advice to you in terms of.
Yeah, he suggested me to go for some. I remember for some discussions on the list. But yeah, okay. I'll kind of hopefully after I'll finish up with finalizer stuff, I'll kind of look into this thing.
So I think Matthew, I'd seen you go off mute. Did you have something you wanted to add in terms of things for us to chat about?
In the node add-on examples repo.
Yeah. So let me go over there and examples. So what would you like us to take a look at, or?
Added a small PR, just adding another example and just getting my feet wet.
Okay, sounds good. So I guess like at this point, it's just the FYI, please take a look, right? Is that, okay. Perfect. Okay, anything else we should chat about this week? If not, then thanks for everybody's time, and we will see you in GitHub and next time. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
So yeah, bye.